Greetings, Hempster. Thank you for tuning in to another Hemp episode of HempAware Radio, where we focus on what's most hemportant. And if you have a hemp company and you need to help getting your traffic and sales up, or if you're wanting to completely redesign your website, and especially if you want to start getting seen with masterful branding, graphic and web design services, then feel free to reach out to us on hempaware.com. and schedule a call today so we can help you make your hemp visions come to fruition. Tyler Hemp here, your hemp-entrepreneurial host, here to empower and hemp-educate your hemposphere as usual, because it's important to provide food, shelter, clothing, energy, healing, plastics, paper, fuel, and so much more. And so in the spirit of raising your hemp awareness, I'm looking forward to this empowering conversation with Morris Beegle of NoCo Hemp Expo, the Southern Hemp Expo, Tree Free Hemp, and SilverMountainHemp.com, a hemp guitar company. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. I'm so excited and thankful to welcome you to the show, Morris. Glad you can make it.
Well, thanks, Tyler. It's good to be back. I think we spoke several years ago on your podcast, and thank you for all that you do as far as spreading the goodness of hemp and the awareness of hemp. You do an awesome job.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. And yeah, it's always good to circle back around and get a little insight on your experience in the last several years. And for those that maybe don't know who you are and the monumental impact that you've had on the industry, maybe give me and our listeners a little bit of background of where you come from, maybe where you were born, and a little bit about your expertise and training or your background, and then ultimately what led you up to industrial hemp in the first place.
All righty. Well, I was born in Liberal, Kansas, which is actually part of the Dust Bowl that happened back in the 20s and 30s when we realized what farming could do to destroying our land, and we're seeing that again these days. But that's where I was born, and my family moved to Colorado when I was 6 months old, and I grew up in the Loveland-Fort Collins area. Graduated from Loveland High School. Was into music growing up, was into a lot of sports. I played golf. I played golf for a year at Colorado State University. Was looking to be a pro golfer, but I had some back injuries and decided that probably wasn't going to be the career path. So I decided to head into the music industry, and I found a school in Atlanta, Georgia called the Music Business Institute. I moved up there in '87 and graduated from there and went directly into the music industry, working for a large music and video distributor called the Handelman Company in 1988, and got transferred to California in 1991 to head up their West Coast retail operations, and worked in California, Washington, and Hawaii for 4 years before exiting the corporate music world and moving back to Colorado and starting my own record company called Happy Scratch Records, which became more of an umbrella of different things. I did a lot of CD and DVD manufacturing and packaging and product distribution and T-shirts and hats and merchandise and managed bands and promoted shows and booked concerts and festivals and did a lot of things. And when I moved back to Colorado, I moved to Fort Collins, and there was a store that was called the Emperor's New Clothes that was in Collins, and that's where I actually first became familiar with industrial hemp. I was obviously familiar with cannabis. I've been a recreational user since high school, I would say, and when I found out about industrial hemp, it's like, wow, this is cool. I hung out at the shop a lot. I saw the Jack Hare book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, and read that, and it's like, wow, this is a pretty amazing plant. And I didn't really become a hempster at that point, but I did do some hemp merchandise for some bands, and for Happy Scratch itself, did some hemp hats and some T-shirts. And I think there was a company called Headcase back then, which was where I was getting the hemp hats from, and they were 100% hemp, and they were really, really nice hats. And it's too bad those guys aren't still around, because those are still some of the best hemp hats that I think I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. So I managed to stay in the music business up until about 2010, 2011. The digital wave kind of killed the physical media business. As you know, there's probably very few record stores left anywhere around the country. There's still a handful of them. that sell a lot of vinyl and so forth. But the CD business got pretty much decimated by Napster and then MP3.com and then all the pirate sharing sites where you can go basically download discographies from every band that exists out there. So that really had a huge impact on the music industry and particularly the physical media industry. Touring bands could still make money, but it was really touring and selling merchandise. And so at that point I was like, I need to find something else to do. I need to find a different career. And at that time in Colorado, 2009, 2010, the medical marijuana thing really started to pick up, and we were open to dispensaries out here. And in 2012, we legalized adult use cannabis with Amendment 64. And with that legislation, there was the opportunity for Colorado farmers to start growing industrial hemp. And I was like, hemp, maybe I should get into the hemp industry. And so I started Colorado Company in 2012 with my partner, Elizabeth Knight. And we started repping hemp shoes from Wicked Hemp Footwear, and Hempies was a merchandise company that's still around in San Diego, and they had hemp hats and shirts and wallets and cordage and a variety of textile type products. And then Hemp Mania was another company that we picked up and started repping as well. And they're out of Washington, and I think they're still in business as well. And they do like backpacks and bags and cordage, and similar to Hempies, but a little bit different SKU selection. And we started making our own T-shirts and hats and our own merchandise. And the following year, I found a hemp paper company, Greenfield Paper, who I think you're familiar with, out of San Diego. And it's like, hey, I've been in the printing business for a long time doing CDs and DVDs and other marketing collateral. So I developed a relationship with them, started buying some of the paper and testing it out on various different digital machines and offset presses here in Colorado. And it's like, we'll start a hemp paper company called Tree Free Hemp. And it's really more of a printing company than a paper company because I wasn't making any paper, so to speak. But that led into Tree Free Hemp. And from there, we just started creating more and more little offshoots. 2014, we started NoCo Hemp Expo because there wasn't no hemp expos going on. There were cannabis events going on that might have a handful of hemp vendors here and there, but there was no real focus on industrial hemp. And so NoCo started in 2014, and then in 2015, we launched Let's Talk Hemp Media to kind of help with the programming of NoCo Hemp Expo first and foremost. And then it has become a full-on media platform with editorial content coming out on a weekly basis. And we curate lots of news from around the world from various sources. And that's really kind of the beginning of how I got into the hemp industry.
Thank you. That's super inspiring. I mean, you're definitely a poster child for a hemp-entrepreneur and for other hempsters out there that are wanting to develop their own brands or build their hemp companies. They have you as a resource is super valuable. So by all means, if you're listening to the show, check out Let's Talk Hemp, and we're going to talk about your hemp guitars and go a little bit more into the tree-free hemp stuff. But you had mentioned you came across this hemp store in Colorado, the Emperor's New Clothes, and you were exposed to just all these different uses, and the Emperor Wears No Clothes book by Jack Herer, and you started getting the hemp bug. Was there a particular historical fact or something that you learned about that just made the light bulb go off for you that you could share with us?
Well, I guess one of the things was that hemp cultivation goes back to the beginning of agriculture, like 10,000 years ago, which was like, wow, we've been growing this since we started doing agriculture. It's one of the very first things that we started to grow in that way. So I thought that was rather interesting. And then realizing that hemp's been used over millennia for various things, from paper to canvas, and artists like Van Gogh and Rembrandt painted on canvas back in the Renaissance era. And then, with the founding of the country, I mean, we sailed the ocean using hemp sails. And when we got over here to America, not that we found America, but during our early days in the 1700s, it was like illegal not to grow hemp back then. It was a main commodity product that we had to grow. So I thought that was pretty interesting too. And it's like, wow, this seems like a pretty resourceful product or a crop that can do all these different things. I want to investigate it more.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even at one point we could pay our taxes, or farmers could pay their taxes with hemp. So this country really is just, I think, founded on this plant. Like you said, our founding fathers were hemp farmers, and original drafts of the Constitution were on hemp and all that good stuff. So there's, tons of historical hemp facts that I think were swept under the synthetic rug, so to speak. And now they're all coming to the surface, and we're seeing the true value of this plant. But as far as your companies, so there's NoCo Hemp Expo, Southern Hemp Expo, you've got Let's Talk Hemp, Tree Free Hemp, and then silvermountainhemp.com for the hemp guitars and music instruments. Maybe tell us, I know you kind of already went into it, and it totally makes sense as to why you have these 5 projects or companies, but what would you say, like in a hierarchical order, like where do you see most of your business, or where's the biggest focus for you in terms of these 5 projects? And then like the second most important, like how would you rate them in terms of your focus and where you're putting most of your energy?
Well, so there's actually more than 5 I wouldn't say they're all separate companies as much as kind of they fall under a couple different divisions, and I started in 2015 because we started to come up with all these different brands. We started with the Colorado Hemp Company, then we had NoCo Hemp Expo and Tree Free Hemp and Let's Talk Hemp and Southern Hemp Expo and yada yada yada. So it's like I need a holding cell for all this, and so WAFBA, which stands for We Are for Better Alternatives, is really kind of this holding umbrella for all of the entities and imprints that I've got. And one area is really events and media. So that would be NoCo Hemp Expo, Southern Hemp Expo, Let's Talk Hemp Media. We've also done a variety of other events, Hemp on the Slope, SLB Hemp Symposium, Hawaii Hemp Conference, Winter Hemp Summit, Hemp on the Bayou. And so we've done probably almost 40 events over the course of the last 10 years now. And so that's really where the most energy goes, and that's where the revenue has been generated, is under the events umbrella. And the media platform is there to support the events and to support the industry and help nourish it along, so to speak. And then the other side of WAFBA is really the products and services side. And so that's where Tree Free Hemp Paper and Printing comes in, Silver Mountain Hemp Guitars, One Planet Hemp, which is really our merchandise kind of line for T-shirts and hats that we do ourselves. And then I also have a website called hempevents.org, which is really just a community-based website that people can post their hemp-related events on there. And we'll post some cannabis events that touch on hemp as well. But it's really for the whole community around the world. If you want to promote your event for free, we'll do it right there at hempevents.org.
That's awesome. And I see Experience Hemp as well is another kind of more international focus for hemp events. Is that right?
Yeah, so Experience Hemp is the latest thing that we've created, and it's still more of a developmental side of things. We're going to be doing like an Experience Hemp Mexico event, and I've got Experience Hemp International. I bought a bunch of domains, and so this is really kind of taking the entire hemp experience and being able to drop a whole preconceived thing into a specific location. So we could go to, let's say, Ireland, or we could go to any place in Europe, or any place in Asia, or any place in North America or South America, like I said, with Mexico. And so Mexico is going to be really kind of the next step for us. There's a lot of opportunities down there, and hemp is legal down there, but there's still some regulatory weirdness that's going on. And eventually Mexico will figure it out. But I think Mexico is going to be a really good market for industrial hemp. We've still got manufacturing down there. There's lots of land. People know how to grow crops down there.
Right.
There's textile manufacturing down there still, so that are doing, cotton apparel and so forth. So that it would be really easy to at least move the textile market more out of Asia, where it is now for hemp, to at least North America. And not that we're not doing some here in the United States and North Carolina and so forth, but our manufacturing for textiles and stuff has basically gone overseas in the last 30 years or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of the old textile manufacturing equipment, I guess, was just shipped overseas because we just lost the industry here. So now we got to bring it back. But yeah, Mexico sounds like a really good, I guess, bridge or way to bring it back to this continent.
Right.
So yeah, that's super exciting. So as far as, putting on these events and traveling the world and organizing all of this, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome, and how are you able to overcome them?
Well, first off, we're a brand new industry here in the United States, and so you've got a lot of new companies that have just popped up, and the regulatory aspect has been challenging because it's associated with marijuana, and marijuana is still federally illegal, although it's legal in Colorado and it's legal in a lot of states now. But it's been challenging from that standpoint with the confusion of hemp and marijuana. And then companies being able to know how to actually, develop an industry. I mean, we're creating this industry from scratch, really, and we can look to China, or we can look to Canada and see what they've done over there. We can look to Europe and see what's been done over there. But the American market and trying to create it here, it's just been, there's been a lot of enthusiasm, and we've seen the industry grow significantly from 2014, when the initial farm bill was passed that allowed pilot programs in states across the country, and see all these companies popping up. But how do you actually get the product to market? And so, the events have been a good place for the industry to really get to know each other, and for us to start to establish a real industry. And getting people to certain areas of the country and to do trade shows, it comes with challenges. But fortunately for me and my team, we've been doing events over the course of the last 20 or 30 years with various things in the music industry, and so that's been beneficial for me to put on these events, because I know how to put on events. And our events haven't been just traditional trade show conferences. Mm-hmm. We've always had an element of kind of entertainment and education and more of a different perception and a different vibe with our events. Mm-hmm. I kind of liken it to a Lollapalooza type energy. And I've tried to take bits and pieces from different festivals and different conferences and trade shows I've been to, like the NAMM show, which is a big music trade show that happens in LA and happens in Nashville. And that's where all Fender and Gibson and Roland and Tama and all the musical instrument manufacturers go to. It's a huge trade show. CES, which is a consumer electronics show, I went to that several times, and we're far from being the consumer electronics show. We've got decades to go in that, but I would guess the biggest challenge has been trying to scale this up with the right companies, and making sure that we focus and try to filter out the good guys from the bad guys. And that's been challenging, because I think a lot of people got into this industry with good intentions, and then for a variety of reasons, regulatory being a big part of it, just didn't have real good business plans, and made promises that they couldn't keep. And there was, this thought that everybody was going to get rich from CBD, and CBD really kind of overshadowed the entire reason we got into the industry, which when I got into it in 2012, I didn't even know what CBD was.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I knew what THC was and I knew what a cannabinoid was, but it's like, here comes CBD. That's not why we legalized industrial hemp. That was never the push. The push was for industrial hemp being food and fiber and housing and textiles. And that's why I got into it. And then all of a sudden here, industrial hemp is now CBD and supplements. And it's definitely more closer related to the marijuana side because you're ingesting this. And does it get you high? No, it doesn't. It's, you know, now in 2022, or, you know, industrial hemp does get you high because we've got Delta 8 and THCO and HHC and all these synthetic cannabinoids that have been converted from CBD. And so I would say that that's been a challenge. Now that's the current challenge of what is the hemp industry? Is it Delta 8? No, that's really an adult use product. I don't think it should be illegal. And I think there needs to be a pathway for it, but it's an issue for our industry at this point in time.
Yeah, I call it the hempnosis. You know, that people are being hypnotized with, you know, what the reality is of things. And you're absolutely right. I mean, the Hemp Industries Association was formed back in I think 1998 or something like that, 99. And
I think it was 94.
94, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody knew what CBD was. It was never about that. And you're absolutely right. I think people's eyes got all lit up with dollar signs, but the original hempsters that got into this for the real reasons, you know, food, shelter, clothing. I mean, granted, there are therapeutic and medicinal benefits of the cannabinoids, and they have a place in our pharmacology and in our society. But yeah, the push for that really messed things up a little bit and got people, I think, still skeptical or not exactly clear on the distinctions between industrial versus medical or recreational. So having your events and Let's Talk Hemp and things like Hemp Aware is a way for us to just keep making a clear line and distinction between what it is that we're dealing with here. But so yeah, those are definite challenges, and I think you're overcoming those challenges. You know, being that you have a background in event coordination, and the music industry is just a perfect marriage for integrating hemp into what you're doing. That's super exciting. But as far as
another thing that we did was in 2015 when we started our marketing for NoCo was we changed it from just industrial hemp to industrial and nutritional hemp, and then soon after added therapeutic, because that way it really covered the spectrum of what the plant can do, from the therapeutics of the supplement side to the nutritional side of the hemp seed and protein, and then to the industrial side, which I really look at as, you know, building materials and composites and plastics and for paper.
Exactly.
All the other stuff that it can do to help benefit the planet and replace toxic ingredients in various, you know, industrial processes.
Exactly. Which brings me to my next question. What sorts of opportunities do you feel are currently untapped or, you know, have a huge potential with regard to hemp products, or where do you see kind of some open markets right now that people should take advantage of?
Well, I think you're seeing that the building materials market is finally starting to gain traction. And that's been a huge thing for me to see happen. I'm really a big supporter of USHBA, the U.S. Hemp Building Association. I think they've done a great job raising the awareness and fighting for some of the certification things that need to happen so we can prove that these materials do what we say they can do, and that they're more environmentally friendly, and they continue to sequester carbon, and they work and perform as good as their petroleum counterparts or whatever those other materials are. So I think that section or sector is got tremendous upside and scalability, along with composites for, let's say, the automotive industry. We've got a lot of automotive manufacturing here in the United States, as well as in Mexico. So in North America, there's a lot of opportunity to have the auto manufacturing industry take a look at what hemp can do from a composite standpoint, from the inside car paneling to, building the bodies out of hemp. And there's a company in California right now, Aptura, I think is the name of them. Are you familiar with them? They've got like these little spaceship cars that are solar powered.
No, Aptura.
Aptera, A-P-T-E-R-A.
Okay.
That's what it is. And so they're raising funds right now, but they've got some demo models, and I think they've pre-sold like 16,000 cars. We were just on the phone with them last week. And
okay, yeah, I have seen this. I just pulled it up. Solar powered, right? Yeah.
What's that?
They're solar powered?
Well, so they're electric vehicles, but they can get 40 miles a day from solar power. So if you're just using it as like a cruise around vehicle around town, you might never have to charge it using electricity. And, this is just at the beginning. So imagine where we can be at 5 or 10 years from now. But that the bodies of those vehicles do have hemp in them currently. There's other plant-based materials for the composites. To my knowledge, they're very eco-friendly. So Elon and Tesla need to watch out for technology like this. And I'm surprised Elon hasn't actually jumped into the hemp side of things. You would think that is talking about saving the planet and how great Tesla is and all the stuff that he likes to pat himself on the back with, that he would be a big hemp supporter from a material standpoint.
I know, right?
Maybe he will be at some point. I think he needs to change a little focus and kind of get off the Mars kick. But I guess somebody's got to do it to try to get us to another planet. I don't think I'd really want to go live on Mars. I'd rather try to do everything I can to save this beautiful planet than terraform a red rock. Yeah, it's kind of an escapist mentality. It's like, oh, well, let's run away from our problems instead of trying to solve them here. So, yeah, I totally agree. And, I mean, obviously he was seen smoking a joint on Joe Rogan's podcast, so hopefully he would consider the other side of the plant to solve some problems. But I think he talked to Joe about CBD and was like, does that stuff even work? Right. Because Joe, I think, has a CBD line, or did have a CBD line. Yeah, I think he also works with that company that's doing like the synthetic T-shirts and stuff, the hemp-based fibers that are like broken down. That I forget what it's called, but viscose. Yeah, viscose hemp. Is he? And when it comes to viscose hemp or bamboo, you can hear a lot of different opinions about that out there. With it's just as toxic as petroleum, and maybe that has been the case. But from my understanding, there's new technology for creating the viscose materials from natural fibers that is a lot less impactful on the environment than it has been. The chemical process has been refined, and it's more closed loop right now, and so that is going to be a way of the future. And I know that there's purists out there that certainly have a different opinion on that. But I would hope that from the purists to the innovators and biotech people, that hopefully we can have good conversations, and we're all smart enough to realize that we all don't have all the answers, and that we need each other to bounce stuff off of, and that there's different ways to do things. Yeah, and if it can be thought up, then someone's going to try to do it. So might as well be as sustainable and efficient as possible. And I mean, if this is a shorter path to a more sustainable approach, I think it has a place in our marketplace to provide something like that. It's supposed to be a free and open market, so why not? If it's a little bit more sustainable, a little bit more eco-friendly than cutting down trees or
using petroleum-based products, by all means, it's a good bridge or another solution. But like you said, for the purists out there and the people that are wanting the authentic, true hemp products, those are going to be available too, and are today. So,
right. Another opportunity that is untapped, I think, is from a waste material standpoint. There's some new gasification systems that are being developed where they're taking trash from cities and basically creating this formula, taking the trash and incorporating hemp waste into that and creating power cylinders, so to speak, so that you could pretty much power a city by trash that also has some other ingredients in that trash mix, and one of them being hemp, and whether that's 10% or 20%. So I think that's pretty exciting too, because we need to learn how to power our society outside of petroleum. And it's going to take a lot of different sources, from the sun to the wind to hydro to plant waste. And here's another use for hemp.
Yeah, no doubt. So for someone just getting involved in the hemp industry, or, let's say someone currently has a hemp or not a hemp company, but just a general company, maybe they're an investor of sorts or an entrepreneur, and they want to dive into hemp, maybe start their own hemp company. What sort of advice would you offer a new hempster to the market, or someone, starting their own hemp company?
Well, I would say do something that you enjoy and that you're passionate about, first and foremost, and do your research, understand the market and the demand for the product or service that you're trying to provide or wanting to provide, and then make sure that you understand the economics of whatever it is you're looking to do. And hopefully you've got financial resources available to you that will help you move along for a while and give yourself some time to get on your feet. And I would also say, don't start a CBD brand, because there was 4,000 of them back in 2019, and I think there's 1,500 of them now, and that's not a good market to get into. The market's still way oversaturated. And then I would also say ignore the haters and the naysayers that are out there. There's lots of negative armchair quarterbacks sitting behind their computers spreading misinformation. So screw them. Don't listen to them. Ignore them. I need to say that to people, because they're still out there, and they're always going to be out there. And there's so many people that have succeeded, and by just ignoring that, some people just don't want to see other people succeed, and so ignore the haters. Right.
Cool. That's super helpful. So do your research. Try to avoid CBD unless you can do something that's extremely unique and different that no one's doing, and you really know how to position yourself in the market. But yeah, I would say avoid the CBD too. That's great advice. And don't listen to the naysayers or the haters. Just stay focused, do what you love, and the success will eventually come if you're, doing a really high quality product. And if you're looking for obviously marketing support or media attention or brand awareness, you can reach out to hempaware.com or any one of your websites. If you would share the website's the best place where people can find you and learn more about each one of your brands too.
Well, you can go to wafba.org. That's WAFB.org. And there's a landing page there that's got really all the brands, and you can click on those. It'll take you directly to the website. But you can go to NoCoHempExpo.com, SouthernHempExpo.com, which we've got coming up in August 18th through the 20th in Nashville. Tickets are on sale now. Exhibitor and sponsorships are available right now. And let's see, we got letstalkhemp.com. If you're looking for the latest in hemp news, we put out a weekly newsletter. You can subscribe right there and keep up to date on all the things that we're doing for our events, as well as all the information coming out around the world regarding industrial hemp. Treefreehemp.com if you're looking for hemp business cards or flyers or brochures for marketing your business. And if you are in the hemp industry, you should try to utilize as much hemp marketing collateral as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So as far as, the problems that we're dealing with as humanity, we've got environmental problems, economic problems, health problems on a personal level that people deal with. What would you say is the number one most important use for industrial hemp right now on the planet, considering all these major issues?
Well, this kind of encompasses multiple things, but I would say that we need to use hemp as a rotational crop on a massive scale, grown regeneratively so that we sequester carbon back into the soil. And the vast majority of this should be dual crop for grain and fiber. And the grain can be used for human foods as well as animal feed. And then all the leftover stock material can be used for non-woven fiber applications such as construction materials and composites, like I already mentioned, biodegradable packaging, since we do have a huge plastic problem and we got to fix that. So that's what I would say. I think that if we grow hemp on a massive scale and rotate it and not just monocrop it so it becomes the next soy or corn, we don't want that. We need to grow millions and millions and millions of acres regeneratively and sequester carbon. That's going to be a huge thing for mitigating climate change. And again, if we do that, and it's generally a dual crop for grain and fiber, then we've got a lot of material for food for humans as well as animals, and then we've got a lot of material that can go into all the different industries that we've really already talked about.
Right. I love that answer. Yeah, I mean, most interviewees that I talk to, they mention like food or housing, that's like a huge pollution cause of pollution right now is the construction industry and all the waste, but then of course the unhealthy homes we're living in. But I love your answer because you really brought up a point that a lot of people aren't talking about. Of course, the conscious people and the regenerative ag people and organic farmers are talking about it, but most people don't realize that all of the topsoil of our land is being eroded and destroyed because of this monocropping, GMO, pesticide, herbicide push. And so I would love for you to expand a little bit more on what does that mean, regenerative agriculture, and how does that differ from conventional farming and monocropping?
Well, when we talk regenerative agriculture, and I'm not an expert, but I've certainly had experts speak at NoCo Hemp Expo and Southern Hemp Expo, Ray Archuleta, John Rulick, David Bronner, Doug Fine. Doug is awesome. I'm sure. And
he's been on the show.
You can't grow the same crop over and over, season after season, and continue to spray it with glyphosate and other fertilizers and pesticides and so forth. And when we talk regenerative agriculture, we're not spraying the crops with any synthetic chemicals. It's working with the land. We're using cover crops so the soil doesn't erode. And we've also got livestock that are roaming, and they're not confined into these like factory farms. And there will be a lot of blame against the meat industry, and rightfully so, the way that we grow our meat, for whether that's beef or pigs or chickens on these big factory farms. And then we're growing soy and corn to feed them, and we're spraying all the soy and corn stuff with a lot of chemicals that's going into the food that we're eating. It's just like, we got to stop that. And if people aren't familiar with regenerative agriculture, I would recommend watching the film Kiss the Ground, which is a great film that came out a couple years ago. Woody Harrelson narrates it, and it really gives a good overview and understanding of what regenerative agriculture is, and how going to this practice We heal the soil. We bring carbon from the atmosphere back down into the ground, and we're not spraying our crops with chemicals that are then running off into lakes and into rivers and then into the ocean, where we've got all this acidification going on. We have to change our path, because if we don't, humans are not going to exist for, it might be 20 years, it could be 50 years, it could be 100 years. But if we keep going on the same pace that we're going, and we don't make a serious pivot to change our agricultural practices, we're not going to have human beings much longer.
Yeah, I think it was Dr. Zach Bush that said if we continue in the trajectory we're going, at how quickly we're eroding our topsoil, I think we have like 20 years of topsoil left, unless we can shift gears and get into this regenerative agricultural approach and not be doing all the tilling that we're doing, and start really focusing on biodynamic, diverse, soil. We're not gonna be here. So I love your answer. I think that's super crucial, because it's like even in the Bible it says, "And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." So we're literally made of the dust of the ground. And so if we can take our soil and regenerate it and revive it, it's the foundation of our health. It's the foundation of our existence, to some extent. So I really appreciate that, and hope our listeners take heed and make better choices on, what they're doing with their money and time, and focus more on hemp. But if there's any last thoughts, I did want to ask you a little bit more actually about Silver Mountain Hemp, because I'm a musician myself and just love this idea of integrating hemp into our plastic products and wood products. Tell us a little bit more about that process, how you guys make the hemp guitars. How do they compare to existing tree-based guitars?
Well, they stand up just fine to them. And I started with working with a company out of Canada called Canadian Hemp Guitars that I think launched in 2013. And I got one of their guitars out to NoCo Hemp Expo in 2015. And then I asked them if they would private label for me. And they were also making ukuleles, which were really cool at the time too. And they made me a few guitars. And unfortunately, it was just a couple of guys that are musicians and hobbyists. They had other gigs going on, and so it's not like they were doing this full time. And the process they use is they would actually have a wood core, and then they would take a hemp matting, like the matting that you would maybe see for for gardening and stuff, just like
like felting material
type thing. And they would take that and they would compress it with like a soy binder, and then they would wrap that around the body of the guitar. And cool. But I would say probably 10% of the guitar on that was hemp as far as the body. The rest of it was really wood. It was just more of a wrapping, a laminate. And then I came across a group of guys, the French brothers, that are in Atlanta, Georgia, or actually they're in Alpharetta, and they were making guitar cabinets for a guy who had a company called the Hard Truckers, and they would build cabinets for a lot of jam bands and so forth. And they were making birch cabinets, but they had made some hemp cabinets back in like 2008, 2009, and they were getting some hemp board from China, and I think they were sourcing it from Larry Serban and from Hemp Traders at the time. And whoever was manufacturing that in Asia, the quality became inconsistent. They wanted 3/4 inch board, and they would be off by a millimeter or two, and it just was really inconsistent. So they stopped screwing around with it. And I got some board product from Sunstrand before those guys went out of business in Kentucky, and had them build some prototype guitar cabinets for me. And then all of a sudden, here comes Hempwood, which is also out of Kentucky, and they're making flooring, and the materials that they're making, they're compressing the stalks with a soy binder, and you can make cabinets and stuff. And so we got some of this material, as well as material that Larry started producing here in the United States called Canagrove, which is a cannabis particle board, 100%. They take the whole stock and basically shred it and press it, kind of like a plywood, except it's got more density than that. And so we made several. I run a guitar cabinets that are 100% guitar cabinets, and they've got hemp cone speakers in there. Tone Tubby is a company that's been making hemp cone speakers for 20 years. They're out of the Bay Area. Have you ever heard of them before?
I have, yeah.
Okay. And so Tone Tubby also provides those cones to Eminence for a line of their speakers called Cannabis Rex. And so they basically provide the cones to them, and the Cannabis Rex speakers are less expensive than the Tone Tubbies. So we put those in the guitar cabinets. And then we also have built some combo amps now that have either the Tone Tubby or the Eminence Cannabis Rex speakers in those. And then I had those guys start building guitars. They're like, hey, we'll build guitars for you if the Canadian guys are unable to fulfill your needs. And so we've built probably 10 guitars now, 12 guitars. And we built a couple strap body guitars, a couple kind of telly, but not telly. It's a telly knockoff, but it's not a complete ripoff. And then, so those, we got like a Hempcaster, what I call is the Hempcaster V1, which is more the telly body, and then the Hempcaster V2, which is got a slightly different horn on the top, and 3 different pickup configurations. One is really kind of a telly setup, and the other 2 is I've got like 3 single coils and then a double humbucker one. And some of those are 100% hemp bodies using the hemp wood and the Canna Grove, and then I made a couple of them that have hemp wood on the top and the back, and then there's a alder core. We tried to lighten them up a bit. One of the issues we've had is the weight of the guitars. These using the hemp wood and the Canna Grove, they're about 8 to 8.5 pounds. Getting them under 8 pounds has been challenging. We've looked at chambering some of it, but we're not sure how that Canna Grove will last over time. It's an unknown. So utilizing the materials that have been currently available on the market has been interesting. It's been challenging, but thus far it's all held up really well. They sound great. I think the biggest point of guitars is not necessarily just the tone wood, but it's really the pickup configuration and the setup. And if you've got really good pickups and you do, that's the most important thing.
Right.
Of course, you've got the purist and the guitar snobs out there that will argue that point as well, and everybody's entitled to their own opinion.
Of course. Well, I think just for conversation's sake and having a hemp-based cabinet or guitar is just super cool. Just to have in your lineup, as one of your axes in your setup would be cool to have. So definitely check out silvermountainhemp.com to get yourself a hemp guitar or speaker. But yeah, do you have any last advice or thoughts for other hempsters, hemp-entrepreneurs out there that you want to leave them with?
I would just say stay positive, stay focused. This plant needs a lot more supporters than it has right now. We need an army of leaders in the hemp industry that are beating the same drum. And that's really, just stay positive, because I think that while there's been challenges the last several years, the oversupply of CBD, 2 years of a pandemic, I think that we know now that our planet is in trouble and that there are solutions out there. Hemp is definitely one of the solutions, and there's going to be tremendous opportunity for growth in the hemp industry. So if you're in this industry, stay true to your vision. And I think that we're going to see over the course of the next 5, 10, 20 years, this industry emerge into one of the biggest industries on the planet.
Very well said. I'm in complete agreement with that. And Really appreciate your time today, Morris. And by the way, if you haven't already gotten your tickets, everyone, check out Southern Hemp Expo to go to Nashville and experience the Hempsational event that Morris is putting on with his team over there. And if you have a hemp company and you need help getting more traffic or sales, or if you're wanting to design a new hemp website or redesign what you've already got, and especially if you want to start getting seen with masterful branding and graphic and web design services, then feel free to reach out to us at hempaware.com. Schedule a call today, and we'll help you make your hemp visions come to fruition. Thanks again, Morris. Really appreciate you and everything you're doing to empower the hemp sphere. Appreciate you being on the show.
Hey, thanks, Tyler. Keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate everything you're doing as well.
My pleasure. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Make it a hempsational day, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.